really see who we are, what we want, and at the same time we can really unleash the power that's within us. And that's where Mitesh Kapadia is going to take over. And let's welcome him into this session. It's going to be really interactive, so make sure you put your time and energy into it. That's the only way you're going to get stuff out of it. And on that note, I want to just make sure that we also emphasize the fact that we're able to do this program for free because of funds that we have, but at the same time, these funds aren't there. So we want to make sure that we also get a valuable contribution from you without asking for it, even if it's just $5 for today's event where you just donate it. And this comes a long way. Just like PBS, it's been running for years, and we want to really make sure that we run YJP events where some are free and some are, for different events, maybe we can charge, but we really don't want to if we don't have to. And I think that's possible if people play an active role throughout the process. On that note, let's really pursue our dreams today and really discover who we are within. And let's welcome in Mitesh Kapadia.
High standard you kept from me earlier. I would love to his introduction. but welcome everybody. My name is Mitesh Kapadia, as I will introduce myself here. And before I get started, I just wanted to see, I think we have Mitesh Kapadia, Nanda, Kapurvi, Tejas, Vaibhav, Vinay, Ami, Kirti, Vishal, Priyank, Vishal and Avishal.
Sure.
Avishwar.
Yes.
Avishwar, okay. I heard something else. But yeah, welcome all of you guys. And I just to introduce myself, I work as a training consultant for what we call the Leaders Institute, as Vaibhav introduced. And there's two things that we primarily do. One is, we do team building workshops and fun, philanthropic team building workshops where we put something together as a team activity. It's like 2-3 hours, and then at the very end of it, we donate it to a charity. So one of the events we do is something called a Build a Bike event, and where we put together bicycles, and at the very end of it, we donate it to a local charity. And second thing that is part of the group that I work with is presentation skills and leadership training. Leadership skills training. And it's something that it's a little bit longer and more, you kind of walk people through a set of fears or uncertainty that people have, and then you kind of walk them through it. So this has nothing to do with what I normally do for work, but this is something that I'm just a passion about, where it's an overall lesson in being able to discover ourselves better in a way, right? At the end of the day, we're always bombarded with so many different things, so many different ideas, yet it's sometimes hard to filter out, what's my truth in me? What's my original beliefs, or what are something that really drives me? What's something that really drives me in a way? So this session is really to kind of work on that piece and to help discover at some point some things that I've gone through that I'll share along the way, as well as what I've seen in the environment around me as well. So come on in, guys. We have just enough chairs for you guys. Perfect.
Didn't want to do some of the sessions.
Come on in.
There's a couple chairs over there.
Some over here. There's some.
All right. We have a little odd setup here where we have the screen here, and you can see turn the chair around this way. So I don't have too many slides per se. I'm not going to bombard you with 40 slides today. It's just like 3 or 4 slides that I have that it's easier to see when it's on there. So the first thing I like to talk about is just recording for myself.
We can send you.
Oh, it's okay, no worries. Okay. First thing is that one of the things that I like to focus on is just this idea of how life is in general. I consider life to be a skill, in a way. It's an art form, but at the same time, it's a skill that we learn from the minute that we're born, right? We might be born with certain natural talents, so to speak, but over the course of where we are now, or since we were born, we've come up with some skill sets we've learned a lot of things, and we've even built on those natural talents that we have, whether it's artistic talent, musical talent, mathematical, logical, just inspirational talent, whatever it might be, we built it up. So the question to you guys is, if we have this here, let's say this is skill, attitude, knowledge, and practice. What do you think is the most important thing to develop a skill? Do you think it's attitude, knowledge, or practice? Attitude. Okay. Anything else? Just seeing if there's any other different. So we have attitude. You want to say knowledge?
I'd say knowledge.
I would say knowledge and or practice too.
Skill is practice.
It's practice.
Everything like is important.
Okay. So I mean, everything is important. I'm not saying that one is is nonsense, but all of them have their importance. I'm just kind of getting a sense of what do you guys feel is the most important out of all of this, right?
I think it's attitude because that kind of determines whatever you want to. And if you don't have an attitude to learn or practice, I think you won't acquire that skill. That's what I think.
Okay. So let's just walk through quickly, and we'll see how this turns out. So first thing, usually when we have some sort of skill that we want to pick up or learn, usually we have a need that arises, right? We'll tell ourselves, I need to get better at waking up early, or I need to lose weight, or I need to be more patient, or I need to be more diligent with my house chores or whatnot. Whatever it is, right? It's always there's a need that arises for us in this kind of attitude zone. However, there's a need enough to push us to take action.
Not always.
Not always. Sometimes, but not always, right? There's always some sort of hesitation, or we'll say it, but we won't really follow through upon it. And what tends to happen is there's some sort of critical point that will create a want for us. Right? There'll be a point where we say, you know what, now I just don't need it, but I want to actually lose weight, right? I want to get better at, being more diligent, waking up, or managing my household, whatever it is, right? I want to do this, and it's some critical point that will usually spark this, right? There'll be something that in our life causes us to have a greater desire to do something, and so let me give you an example of this in the sense that, as Vaibhav mentioned, I graduated from Stevens Institute of Technology, which was right down across the river in New Jersey. And when I finished with my master's degree, I had about 6 months. I finished 6 months earlier than I had anticipated. Yeah, I'm not trying to say I'm an overachiever. That was the one time that I actually did. But it's just whatever reason. I had one credit because I did my undergrad there too, so I had one course that counted, so it helped me kind of accelerate myself. I counted almost twice, so in a way. But nevertheless, I finished one semester early. So rather than finishing in June of one year, I finished in December of the previous year. And I asked myself, I have a job lined up. It's something that I can start in June. And what do I do at this time? I have basically from January till June to do whatever I want. And I asked myself, what can I possibly do? So I came down to 3 options. First was, I can either, stay at home, which wasn't really the most appealing option. I couldn't stand myself, watching Oprah or Jerry Springer every day and just kind of, spending my day like that. I'd go nuts. So I said, no, I'm going to cross that out. That's not the option I want. The second thing I thought to myself is I can start work early. And I thought about it and said, you know what? It's very rare that you get an opportunity to get 6 months of time to do whatever you want, right? Once you get started in the working world, then you're lucky to get like 2 weeks, 3 weeks, at most maybe 4 weeks, especially as soon as you graduate, right, to get that much vacation time. And so I said, you know what, I'm going to use this time to go, for the third option, go travel somewhere. Not to stay at home, not to start work early, but just go travel. And I thought to myself, all the options of what I can possibly do in this 6-month time frame. I said, I could probably go to Europe and go backpack there, or I can go to Australia, and go swim with the dolphins or whatever they do in Australia, or surf and things like that. And but I ended up actually going to India. India, where being that I had been born there, but I lived most of my life here, I never really got a chance to see and experience the culture there. So I thought to myself, you know what, I might as well go there and go experience the culture and traditions there. So I ended up finding a university about 6 hours north of New Delhi. It's in Haridwar. I don't know if you guys are familiar with the town or the area, but it's in Haridwar. And this place had a university where they were teaching yoga, Ayurvedic medicine, holistic health, and a little bit of scientific spirituality in a way. So spirituality based on just science in a way. So then I thought to myself, you know what? I don't necessarily need a degree from here. I just want to sit in on the courses. And I got permission, as someone from coming abroad, I got permission to actually sit in on the classes there. I was like, great, perfect. And one of the things that they told me as soon as I signed up is that they said, we need to let you know that in this area, not a lot of people speak English. So many of our classes will be in Hindi, and we will, it might be challenging for you to do that. So I was like, no challenge. That's not a big deal for me. I speak Gujarati. I can Hindi, no challenge. Not a big deal. I watch Bollywood movies, here and there. I can pick this up. So I ended up studying a little bit more, and I would do naturally. I googled, everything there is about Hindi, and then I've got a few books that are pretty good, and just started reading and writing and practicing. And obviously, the text is a little bit different than English, so and even Gujarati and Hindi have a little bit of a difference, not too much, but you just kind of write and add a line over it basically. So I got to know it a little bit better. And so I felt confident. I was like, I had 2.5 weeks to study. I felt confident. And here I am. I go to India. And soon after, once I get there, I get to this university, I recognize that, it's a little bit more challenging than I thought it would be, right? I studied this pure Hindi where, where the way that they pronounce it and say it is just so pure and there's no corruption to the language whatsoever. When I go to Haridwar, everyone's speaking in this dialect and this slang and whatnot, and I'm thrown off a little bit. I'm thinking, how am I going to communicate here? I felt like an outsider, really, at that point. Even though I'm Indian and even though I'm in my country, so to speak, I felt like a little bit of an outsider. And then I started to notice there was a few things that were going on, and the rickshaw drivers were starting to charge me a little bit more than I needed to be charged. The fruit and vendor guys kind of saw that they can get a couple of extra rupees out of me, and so because of my language and the not to say everyone in India is bad. I met a lot of amazing people there and I had a great experience. So I'm not trying to bash India by no means am I doing that. I'm just kind of giving a highlight that sometimes when you're a foreigner in a different country, or at that point I wasn't necessarily pretty much like a foreigner in that way. So I thought to myself, I don't know if I can stay here for 6 months. It's going to be tough, kind of managing my way here and just kind of figuring things out. And I was considering going back because I was like, it's going to be tough. The classes were in Hindi. I wasn't really getting a lot of the information. So then finally, I found a gentleman that was good enough in English that he was able to teach me Hindi, and I was good enough I knew Hindi as much that me and him could communicate and barter that skill. So I was able to teach him English, he was able to teach me Hindi, and at the very end of it, it just worked out really well. And 6 months later, I was pretty proficient at it. Where if I was in the midst of a crowd, I could pass as one of a local there. So which is pretty cool for me. So why am I bringing that up? Is that here, I had a need to learn Hindi, right? Just because I'm going to a country or I'm going to India and learning, I have this need, I want to learn, right? Or I need to learn. What I ended up doing is going here into this knowledge phase of things, where I ended up researching on Google, getting books from Amazon, and just resources that will help to strengthen this part up for me a little bit more. But when I got there, I had a little bit of doubt that crept in. This is typically what happens for us, right? We get to a point, and this huge thing of doubt comes about where we don't know if we can actually do it. We start questioning ourselves. We start questioning, is this possible? Is this, what I'm trying to do, is this even under my capacity to do so? And, it's at this point where the attitude really tries to kick in and say, I want to do this. I want to do this, but there's always that sense of doubt. Okay. And what really helped here for me was the practice part. Right? Just by conversing and working with a coach or a mentor or somebody that really, was helping to accelerate my growth, really helped in that particular skill. And when it comes to a skill, it's really in this practice phase where we can learn a lot. Okay? And so let me give you an example is that I recently got married about 16 months ago. Yeah, I should know this, right? 16 months ago. Yeah, about 16 months ago. And so when I first got into this whole marriage business, I was, researching once again, and not to bash marriage, trust me. I truly enjoyed it. It's truly a growth experience for me in a way, and for my wife, as we go through this process. But one thing that I found is I found a statistic that when people get married, the ones that tend to stay married after a long period of time have about 5 positive experiences compared to 1 negative experience overall. On average, right? It takes about 5 positive experiences to 1 negative. And the ones that end up towards divorce are, even the ones that are just a little bit over, like say 1.5 to 1 or 2 to 1, are likely to end up in a split or go different directions or whatnot. And of course, the ones that obviously have more negative than positive are doomed from the beginning. So the idea was that it takes for us, it takes a lot of positive experiences, practices, right? We need to really just practice and really find that success in the things that we do. Even if it's small successes, they can build and help. Because this one negative experience can kind of turn us away from wanting to get better at something sometimes, or maybe close doors that we may not necessarily have thought we can actually go through. So as a result, when you kind of go, it's like a cycle in a way. When you have enough practice, you get better at a skill, and at the same time, you start to develop this attitude of I can do it, right? And so it's really here where it kind of starts. The more, even if we're not doing it to the best of our ability for some reason, but if we get a little bit of success and we continue and we continue and continue, it can develop this positive attitude, and we learn a lot in the process too. Right? Sometimes we say that, what do they say, that knowledge is what? Power. Probably the biggest lie that's ever been told to our children, in a way. Not necessarily knowledge is important, but it's the application of it, right? Knowledge is a great thing, but it's how we apply it that really makes a difference, right? And just think about, who would you rather trust to fly you from here to India? Would you, trust the pilot who has studied 300 hours in the classroom, or the guy who has at least flown 30 hours in the plane? Right? 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 It just makes sense that the one who has practiced it, the one who's actually put that stuff into practice, really is the one that we feel comfortable trusting. And so this is just an idea of, life is a skill in a way, that no matter what we encounter, and even this idea of discovering our truth, we might not be getting it the first time, but if we find a little bit of success, maybe even just today, that's kind of the idea here, is to create a little bit of positive successes here that can help to perhaps allow us to say, I probably can do this. I can, discover my truth a little bit better. I can discover the things that I might not have seen before, right? Rather than saying that, kind of getting stuck in this doubt phase where we're kind of saying, I don't know if I can do this. Okay? So that's my goal, is to get you to this place, hopefully by today. And if we can, I think that would be a good success. Okay? So, just, you have a sheet of paper, you should have a sheet of paper, and just kind of look at it. side, put, I guess you can put area of your life, and you could draw a line in the middle, you don't have to, but on the other, so on the left side, area of your life, on the right side, your rating of it, okay? So what I mean by rating of it is not necessarily where you are right now, but where you think you're going in this direction, okay? So when it comes to habits and your daily routine, how would you rate 10 being the best and 1 being like, I'm absolutely horrible at this, or not making any progress in this? Where do you feel you lie in that spectrum? Okay, do you find it's a 1 or a 10 for you? You all have a pen and paper, by the way, just before I start jumping into this. Okay? Habits and daily routine.
I'm sorry, what was it?
It's just putting a number where you feel you lie along that spectrum. So 10 being the best, where you feel you're incorporating this into your, or how good you feel about it. How good are you in maintaining your habits and daily routine? Okay? So your own assessment of yourself. Okay? So no cheating here. Really want to help you. All right. Okay, next one is career and work. What do you feel is your assessment of this? How good do you feel about it? About money and finances. So it's a little bit different than career and work. I know they're tied together, but I just like to kind of differentiate where career and work is mostly almost the type of work that you do and just more that type of quality. Money and finances could also be your belief on how money is. Some people have these beliefs where money is bad or money is good or finances. I make a lot of money, but I'm also wasting a lot of money, or I don't make enough and I'm not spending enough, or whatever it is, right? Or I make a lot and I'm very, very thrifty, and whatever it is, whatever your beliefs are on that, it's yourself this is your chance to kind of say, okay, where do I feel I am on that particular scale from 1 to 10? Okay. All right. Here's a big one: health and fitness. Where do we think we are on this scale of health and fitness? Okay. If you have a question, I'll let you know as to what I'm referring to here. Mental development and education. So this is the piece where, in terms of, just it could be the education that you've gotten within a school setting or outside of a school setting, and just your overall kind of mental development in terms of how you feel about your mind and your thoughts and general environment that you have up there. All right, social life and relationships. It's pretty explanatory, self-explanatory, right? Social life versus relationships. How do you feel you're on this spectrum? Okay. Home and family. How connected do you feel to your family, or do you feel connected at all, or is it a great connection? Is it a poor connection? Something you can do better? Something that you're already doing great? Emotions. How is your emotional kind of balance? How do you feel like? Do you get angry a lot? Do you, find yourself getting carried away by your emotions, or are you able to use them to your advantage? Man, this is a quiz already on a Sunday, and now I knew better. I was studied. Character and integrity. How do you feel your character is? overall integrity that you keep with people. And be honest. That's the whole point of character and integrity. Alright, couple more here. This is the second last one. Life purpose and contribution. How do you feel you are, how well in alignment do you feel you are with your life purpose per se, or contribution to the world around you? Right, it's like we're all cogs in this giant machine, so to speak. So how do you feel that you're contributing to that giant machine? And lastly but not least, spiritual development. How do you feel you are in that particular spectrum? Okay. Find yourselves getting a lot of 9s or 10s in these? Or do you find that there are lots of middle ground where you're kind of, 4, 5, 6, 7, maybe? Okay. So here's the next thing, is that take a look at all the marks that you have here. Don't add them up or anything like that, but just look at the ones that are 8 or less. Okay? Cross them out and put a 1 next to it. Okay? Somebody doing a lot of crossing. All right, so the reason why I asked you to do this is because a lot of times, if we're not at a 9 or 10 at this point, then you can essentially consider it a 1, right? We're not there yet, right? We're pretty much, right? I mean, we feel like we're not there yet, so it's almost like in computer logic, computer science, we're 0 or 1, right? If you're there, you're not there. And typically a 9 or 10 is a good indication of, yes, you are feeling good about it at that point, or you are there. But anything less than 8 is like you're kind of settling in a way. So let me ask you a question, is that what do you feel is the number one reason why most people don't achieve their dreams or their visions of what they want to do?
Beliefs. They don't believe in him. They don't have a clear path.
Clear path?
Lack of work
Lack of?
and effort.
Lack of effort, okay.
They're not specific enough.
Not specific.
I guess no clear,
Yeah.
no clear definition of where they want to go.
Okay. So, all good answers. I think that it's not necessarily a negative thing. It's something that is actually good, in a way, right? What holds us back from achieving our dreams is actually that something good. I'll give you an example of this where, as Vaibhav mentioned, I was working at Goldman Sachs for about 2 years, and a really amazing position, paid really well, and you kind of get the status of, yes, you're with Goldman Sachs or whatever, right? You get that stamp of approval from your family and friends and whoever, right? And everything that was pointing to that indication said, I should be happy, I should be in this 9 or 10 range, but I really felt like I was at a 6 or 7 at that point. I didn't feel like I was there, and I thought to myself that, what was, if I stayed with this job 5 years from now, and I see myself, kind of project myself 5 years into the future, would I feel like I can realistically get to a 9 or 10 this place? And I couldn't answer honestly and to myself and say, yes, I could do that. I don't think it was possible for me to enjoy where I was. And as a result, that was I think one of my first big lessons in the idea of truth, of understanding what is it that is my truth, in a way, right? So it's not necessarily the things that are holding us back from reaching our dreams and goals is a negative. I mean, they could have factors, doubt, fear, lack of effort. All those are great things, but sometimes we settle for something that's really good. I could have settled for this job at Goldman Sachs and, continue to make good money, continue to have that it was funny because the office that I was put in literally had like windows here, and I was facing the river, was this East River here, and had a nice view of Brooklyn, and I was like, oh man, but it felt like a jail cell. It felt like a jail cell where my paycheck was my handcuff. The only reason I was in that job was because of the paycheck. And that's not a really good reason to, at least I feel that. I don't feel like it's a good reason to be in a job where your paycheck is the only thing that's holding you there, right? So what I decided was, I was like, you know what? Why settle for just something good? I mean, right now I'm at that time I was single, didn't have any financial debt that I had too much, or was concerned with kids or things like that. And I was able to take a risk. I said, I'm going to take a risk. And after I've done that, let's say about 6-7 years later, here I am. I've gotten to a point where I've gotten to, have been able to speak and lecture in India, Canada, USA, maybe about 20 states here in the US, and really get to a point where I enjoy what I do. And it's an idea of just understanding what the beliefs were that led me to this, okay? So one thing to think about is, and Vaibhav was mentioning this earlier too, I'm kind of referring to all the introduction. It's really good stuff that he said. So one of the three principles, or the three pillars in a way, was perception, right? And sometimes our perception of our life, or of where we are, can really shape our reality, in a good way or a bad way. So let me give you an example where, say for example, we have these blue sunglasses, right? No matter where we go, if it's in a bright room, dark room, yellow room, purple room, wherever we go, you'll always see things blue. Right? You'll never get the chance to see the color red, even if you tried. Right? And so it's just really being able to shift. What are these belief systems that have molded us or shaped the way that we view life? And so the question is to you is, what are some things that help develop our belief systems in a way, or just overall perceptions? What are things that influence it?
Experiences.
Okay, our experiences.
Our environment.
Environment.
Education.
Alright, all the E's from up here. Education.
Knowledge.
Okay. Knowledge, good. You think what else affects our
Expectations.
Going for the E.
I figured I had number one.
What else affects our, maybe just overall, even people, people might be able to.
Peer pressure, or family.
Influence. Influence from who?
From, you can say your friends and family.
Okay. Family and friends. What else? Influence in our beliefs.
Values? past failures.
Failures, okay.
Next one between their our religious beliefs.
Okay.
Yep.
Our faith, religion. That's a pretty good list here. Anything else that comes into your mind? Any other issues with that?
I guess successes as well, so it's like any outcomes, a failure or success.
Yeah.
Okay, so that kind of goes here, like, you know, failures with our
Yeah.
experience, and so I wrote it down, but I guess we can failures and success here. Kind of our experience with that. Okay. All right, so we have so many different things that are kind of being input to us, and as you can see, with this much stuff, there can be a lot of noise that's hard to kind of figure out, you know, what kind of is driven internally rather than coming from outside, right? I'll give you an example of where back in the time, I think Socrates is the first person that, not first, but one of the first observations that he made is that he saw two people. And he saw that there's two people, just let's say for the sake of example here, we have Vaibhav and Vishal, right? He saw two people that had similar experiences growing up, had a similar upbringing, had, you know, experiences, and just overall, everything was kind of similar where, you know, you would expect that they would have similar personalities. However, what Socrates noticed is that he asked the question, why is it that these two individuals, even though they had pretty much everything same on the outside, why is it that they have totally different personalities? And so he came to the conclusion that it's not necessarily externally driven, but the personality is more internally driven. It's something that, you know, it's almost like a knife. You probably heard this example. A knife in the hands of a doctor can actually save a life, but a knife in the hands of a thief or murderer can actually take away a life. So same thing with our brain is that, you know, how we perceive things, how we look at things can actually benefit us. That we can see for example, let's say we lost our job, for example. One person can see that as the worst thing in the world and get depressed about it. Another person can see that as, you know, that's an opportunity for me to go somewhere else or to find, you know, to use my skill somewhere else. Right? So you can kind of see how it's internally driven. And that's kind of the idea. I'm just going to quickly go through I like the yogic philosophy of looking at the mind and how this tends to work. So let me just quickly